Hello everyone, this is part 65 of What If Naruto Had Two Bloodlines, and I hope you guys enjoy this video and to like, to subscribe, to share, and check out the playlist, to see more comment down below. Now let's start the intro.
They call me a god. They call me a god. They call me a god.
Join my membership, the perks are great. It's in the description. Be sure to like and subscribe, it gives me more motivation. Kohaku and her soldiers were now engaged in a small battle of their own. The little area that they clashed was quickly being littered with boss from both sides. Injured as she was, Kohaku wouldn't let it hinder her. She set her sights on her target. She had only one thing in mind. Haraku, uncle, you bastard. I'll make you pay for what you've done. Yuzuki vs. Daisuke. I'll make you regret this. Yuzuki yelled. As she came at him, Daisuke simply smirked and said, I'd love to see you try. Yuzuki got to him and swung hard and fast. She missed, taking his head off as he ducked under the attack. Using her momentum, Yuzuki spun into a back kick. Daisuke blocked it and stumbled backward. Yuzuki kept it up as she brought her weapon down on him. She barely missed thanks to a slight back jump in Daisuke's step, but she wouldn't let that stop her. With no wasted motion, and using her lodged weapon to increase her force, she shifted into a swift flying kick. It wasn't swift enough, however, as Daisuke slipped by the attack. Before she could even land on the ground, Daisuke grabbed her by her swung her around, and slammed her to the ground. As he proudly stood over her, he claimed, look at this. I've got the witch Yuzuki at my feet. He then proceeded to kick her. This could have been avoided if you would have just agreed to join me when I offered. This is what happens when stupid people make stupid decisions. Ayumu vs. As Ayumu turned to continue her search, Kiba and Sai ducked back before she could see them. Once again they questioned what was going on. Ayaka replied, if you meet the gaze of Ayumu while she's using that technique, it'll be the last time you ever do. You'll be trapped in her genjutsu and be unable to do anything. A genjutsu? Kiba said, dumbfounded. That's no big deal with our numbers. You say that because you don't understand. If you happen to look into those eyes of hers even slightly, it won't be long before her genjutsu takes effect. Your entire body will quickly seize up, and, from what I've witnessed, so do your organs. If they should ever stop working, then. Kiba and Sai looked as if they understood. If that's the case, then what do we do? Kiba questioned. Well, Sai began. As long as we don't look into her eyes, there should be a way. He seemed to have come up with something. Kiba and Ayaka were interested in hearing what it was. Yuzuki vs. Daisuke. Daisuke was still kicking his downed opponent across the ground. He then stopped kicking Yuzuki to pretentiously say, now, I'm sure that you regret going against me. For this, I'm willing to give you another chance to rule at my side. He then corrected himself, well, not so much at my side as under me. With a smile on his face as he looked down on her, he asked, so, what do you say? There was no reply from her. All he got was a stare from her cold, blue, bewitching eyes. This prompted more kicking from Daisuke. Having had enough, Yuzuki put a sudden stop to this as she caught one of Daisuke's feet. After spitting a speckle of blood, Yuzuki responded, like hell I would join someone that hurt the people closest to me. She shoved him away. Another smile appeared on Daisuke's face as Yuzuki stood to her feet. He had to admit it, he didn't like being opposed, but he liked how interesting and exciting this was. Takumi vs. Yamato now had his hands full and couldn't do anything to stop the charging Takumi. All of a sudden, he motioned to stop. Yamato soon found why. Water wall. A wall of water exploded into the air. Takumi stopped short, but, from above, Yo attacked with Takumi's trident. Takumi avoided being skewered by his own weapon by stopping in his tracks. He didn't even give Yo another chance to attack as he kicked him aside. He then refocused on Yamato and a now alert Kuki. Reunited with his trident, Takumi began advancing on them. Water prison, Yo said, showing that he wasn't done. The water at Takumi's feet came alive and engulfed him in a small orb. He struggled but couldn't get free. Things seemed to now be in their favor. Even if you can use water-style techniques, you won't be able to free yourself from my water prison. They watched on as Takumi floated within the bubble. If he just drowned, that would make things simple, but when a thing's ever that simple? Showing no signs of worry, Takumi raised his trident and the water began to part. At this point, the common allies thought, what else can this guy do? Ayumu versus. Ayumu was still searching for her former ally. All she would come across was animals. Not intentionally, but also not caring, she would steal their life in her hunt for Ayaka. She then heard rustles in the bush that sounded like someone running away and followed. When it stopped, she thought she caught up but found no one. Suddenly, she noticed something coming at her. She quickly turned to meet it with her fearsome gaze. She managed to do just that before it was too late for her, but it wouldn't stop. It slashed her across her abdomen. Before long, she was surrounded. What's going on? Why isn't my jutsu working? What are these things? It seems like this may work, Ayaka said. It was a good plan, Sai, Kiba complimented. I figured that it was worth a try to see if her technique worked on everything or if it only worked on things with actual life. It seems that it was a good thing. He drew on a scroll, ninja art, super beast scroll. More lion-like beasts were created. They then went on to join their fellow creations. They encircled Ayumu. Since her eye technique was ineffective against these growling beasts, Ayumu would just have to do it some other way. She readied her kunai as they were poised to pounce. They attacked the first chance they got. Ink and blood was spattered all over the area as Ayumu fought as best she could. When it was over. Ah, my eyes, she screamed. Ayumu had successfully defended herself but was now blinded, temporarily. Though the beasts I summoned managed to do some harm to her, the best they could manage was luckily splattering their ink onto and into Ayumu's eyes. If ever, now was the time to attack. Let's go Akamaru. Fang over Fang. Kiba and Akamaru launched the combined attack. The unsuspecting Ayumu was blasted back into a tree. As she just lay there, not making a single movement, Sakura and Hinata arrived. They were too late to get involved in this fight but were relieved that no one was hurt. Or so they thought. Ayumu let out a rough cough as she regained consciousness. Not wasting any time, she weakly began cycling through hand seals. What is she up to now? Kiba questioned. I have no idea, Ayaka responded. But it can't be anything good for us. Her seals completed, Ayumu proceeded to remove her clothes. Why is she doing that? Kiba was questioning with a blush on his face. He wasn't the only one questioning this action with a blush on his face. The only one present that wasn't blushing was Sai, who instead seemed confused by the others' reactions. As Ayumu stood before her enemies in the buff, her skin began changing. Things began appearing on it that resembled. Those couldn't be. Sakura was in disbelief. Oh no. Everyone take cover. Ayaka shouted. And don't look at her. Everyone went into hiding. As they did, a few of Kohaku's soldiers appeared on the scene. What is that? One of them questioned. No. Don't look. Ayaka warned. Unfortunately, she was too late. Ayumu was revealed in all her glory as the things all over her body opened up with a flash of red. Ayaka and the Leaf Shinobi could do nothing but watch as all the soldiers literally turned to stone. What the hell? Kiba said with a bit of panic in his voice. It's the fate of you all, Ayumu stated. You'll all be petrified in stone for all eternity once I set my gaze on you, she sneered. She was a scary sight to behold. All over her body were red eyes that could turn any unfortunate soul to stone. What was even scarier was that she was now coming their way. As she made it to where she thought her latest victims were, Ayumu became infuriated. Once again, she was given the slip. Furious, she pushed over and set the stone soldiers to pieces. Safe for the moment, the Leaf and Ayaka took the time to collect themselves and try to come up with a good plan or so. It would help if they had some intel on the technique they would be up against. Before, they only had to worry about looking into her eyes, but how could they avoid that if her eyes were everywhere on her body? Ayumu was still searching for her opponents. With her technique, it was a lot easier to keep an eye out for them. She wasn't even taken by surprise when a ferocious bunch of dangerous drawings approached her. No sweat and no stress, Ayumu didn't budge an inch as 20 or so attacked. The team was bewildered as everyone was turned to stone. Even the bird attacking from above was petrified as an eye opened on the top of Ayumu's head. What? Her jutsu works on things that aren't living too. Kiba was confused. But before. Then she's more fearsome than I thought, Ayaka stated. For now, Let's investigate the area where she first activated this scary jutsu. Hopefully we'll be able to figure out how it works. They snuck back as Ayumu said through the statuesque beasts, but I see you. They returned to find something even more baffling and horrendous than what they had just witnessed. The soldiers had been said to pieces and everything including trees, bushes, and flowers had been turned to stone. It was inconceivable. How the hell are we supposed to fight and win against someone like that? We can't even get close to her unless we want to become statues, Kiba pointed out. If we could somehow attack from a distance, but she'll probably just see it coming no matter where it's from, Ayaka pondered. Someone could always act as a decoy. They'd be SD but maybe the enemy would focus on him enough that she doesn't notice another attack, Sai suggested after finally catching his breath. Are you crazy? Kiba opposed. No one here is going to give up their life just so that we can win. It'd be a pointless, hollow victory. Then, what do we do? Hinata asked with a hint of worry in her voice. You can all They heard a voice say from a distance. It was Ayumu, and she continued, you can all let me turn you to stone and your part will be done. You won't have to worry about another thing after that. You don't even have to worry about it being painful because it's not, at least maybe until I start slowly chipping away at you. Without looking at her, everyone scattered, but not so fast, Ayaka. Ayaka was ducking behind a tree when she suddenly felt her legs seize up on her. She turned to see that they had been turned to stone. How is this possible? I'm able to turn anything I set my sights onto stone, if I choose to, Ayumu explained. Still partially hidden, Ayaka continued speaking, so, how does it work exactly? While she asked this, she tried to figure a way to save herself. Ayumu responded, like I'd tell you and your little friends that are probably listening in. Ayaka cycled through seals as Ayumu approached, living forest manipulation. She tried to control the trees and use them to her benefit once again, but it wasn't working. The strain of trying to utilize her jutsu was making her head hurt and blood DS from her nose. It just wasn't working, and soon, neither would she. As Ayumu rounded the tree to get a good look at Ayaka, she saw an arrow coming at her. She evaded it but was forced again and again to keep moving. From a distance, Hinata was providing cover and forcing Ayumu back. She pressed a button on her HALO to communicate with the others. I managed to get her away from Ayaka, but she can't move on her own, she informed them. I'm on it, Sai said as he swooped in on a bird and scooped up Ayaka. As they flew away, they were seen by Ayumu. Damn it. Don't think that you can just run away. She gave chase, slowly catching up to them. I'm almost in range, she shouted as she got closer. She was suddenly stopped by an unusual earthquake. From what she could see, Sakura had punched the ground and caused it to shake. Even after she stopped, Ayumu noticed that the ground was still rumbling. A pair of hands grabbed her by the ankles and pulled her down. She was now knee-deep in the ground and was struggling in getting free. She could see Sakura in the distance twirling around before releasing something her way. She struggled and struggled as she tried to get free. Unless she could, she would be split by the giant axe coming her way. She managed to pull up her legs and leap over the axe at the last second. As she lingered in the air, she was overwhelmed with several arrows. Ayumu shrieked as many of those fired by Hinata managed to take out many of the eyes on her body. Even so, she had managed to provide herself with cover. Before any critical points could be hit, she caused a wall of earth to spring up. I can no longer get a clear shot, Hinata informed. Seeing that Ayumu was now going after Sakura, Kiba, and Akamaru, Ayaka made a decision. Set me down over there by that tree. What are you going to do? Sai asked. I'm going to see to it that this ends, she said. After being set down, she called to Ayumu, let's you and me end this. A little skeptical, Ayumu gave in to her urge to kill anyone for the time being. She approached with a smirk on her face as she recognized Ayaka's seals. Once again, she struggled to manipulate the surrounding trees. Blood trickled from her nose as she tried as hard as she could. The smile on Ayumu's face grew larger as she came closer and blood began de-sping from Ayaka's shut eyes. Now, turn to stone. I don't mind, as long as I give these seedlings a chance to bloom. Blood poured from her nostrils, eyes, and ears as she managed to get one of the petrified trees to come to life. It wrapped its branches around Ayumu, ultimately restraining her. No matter how hard she kicked and screamed, she couldn't get free. This provided a clear chance for target in sight, Hinata said as she let an arrow fly. Ayumu could do nothing but watch it fly right at her and ell her between her original eyes. Her head drooped and her jutsu came to a halt. Unfortunately, she wasn't the only one. Blood puddled on the ground as it poured from Ayaka's skull. Sakura laid her down and checked her pulse. She said nothing but shook her head. Yuzuki vs. Daisuke. Yuzuki was still at it. She twirled her weapon about with great skill as she tried to cut Daisuke to ribbons. Throughout the fight, she had managed to leave a few shallow cuts, but he would just heal them and mock her. It was getting old, fast. I guess that I'll just have to make it where you can no longer heal yourself then. Takumi vs. Kuki had just taken a hard blow from Takumi. As he rolled back to his feet, he said, "Both you and I know that the use of the lightning element won't go far with either of us, so why are you still using it against me when I can just counter it with my own?" Takumi answered, "I was aiming for your heart. If I hit that with a strong enough electrical current, then I should be able to stop it completely." Kohaku. It was a fairly even battle between Kohaku's group and her traitorous uncles, Hiraku. As the two charged for the other, despite Kohaku's injuries, they each slashed, LD, and cut down any enemy soldier in their way. They had made it close enough to have their final clash. Yuzuki vs. Daisuke. Yuzuki wasn't getting anywhere with her attempts. It was like she would take one step forward but be forced to take 2 steps back. She set down her weapon and began cycling through hand seals. As she finished, there was an unusual amount of silence before it was interrupted by her sudden burst of chakra. 3 faces of the moon goddess. Daisuke was intrigued but couldn't believe his eyes at what he saw before his eyes. Takumi vs. Yamato, Kuki, and Yo had been on the worst end of the fight and were now regrouping. As they tried to rest and catch their breaths, they heard nothing from their surroundings. "He's completely disappeared, I can't sense him," Yamato quietly mentioned. They would have to come up with something quick before he attacked. They kept a careful eye out for him as he lurked about. If they hoped to beat this guy, they couldn't just sit about. Just as they were about to move out, Takumi made a sudden appearance. Without a single sound or hesitation, he impaled Kuki from behind using his trident. "Kuki!" Yo yelled just before he received the same fate. As Strangewood began springing from the ground, Takumi reached for Yamato with the intention of shocking him to death. He stopped short as he realized that something was odd. Instead of using the wood as interference or a blockade, it was closing them in together. Before being shut in completely by the wooden structure, Takumi was surprised to see that the enemies he had impaled were actually water clones. They all sloshed and puddled around his feet. Surrounded by darkness and wet around his ankles, Takumi didn't understand the purpose of this. He certainly didn't understand why there was an opening at the top of the wooden structure. He was then informed by Yamato, "Here's our 3-pronged attack." Yo cycled through hand seals and water began pouring in from the opening. Takumi then heard creaking and breaking in the wooden structure. He wasn't sure, but he had a hunch as to what his enemies were currently up to. As he floated upward, he quickly took his trident and tried to swim to the bottom to drive it into the ground. Lightning style, electric field entrapment, Thunderdome. Yo stopped his water just in time to avoid being caught in Kuki's attack. The water inside the electrified dome began violently bubbling and boiling to the point that steam and burned F filled the air. The enemy's forces were dwindling down to nothing. Although they might not have realized this at the moment, Daisuke and Hiraku, and his troops, were the only ones remaining. They kept up their fight, some having more difficulties than others. Kohaku fought valiantly, ignoring the pain from her injuries. As they continued, Kohaku asked, "Why, uncle? Why have you done this? Why have things come to this?" Catching his breath, Hiraku managed to say, "I didn't want it to have to come to this, but now that you and your family knows too much, you all must s." Daisuke finished as he looked all 3 versions of Yuzuki in their eyes: young, between 18 and 30, current, between 30 and 50, and older. Not intimidated by his words, they all moved into attack. At first, Daisuke figured that it was some illusion. He did his best to avoid them all, but as they increased the intensity of their attacks, it all seemed too real when he gained cuts all over from them all. As he healed his wounds, he questioned, "What kind of magic is this? There's no way that this is real." He concentrated and tried to break the genjutsu. "Trust us, it's no genjutsu," the two younger versions said as they drove their crescent-shaped blades into him and battered him into a few trees. Blood flew from his body as he crashed. To put the final nail in the coffin, the older version hurled edged tools with explosives attached to them. They went off and the smell burning F filled the air. Knowing Daisuke's abilities personally, each version of Yuzuki wasn't surprised when he emerged from the smoldering ashes. His body had indeed been terribly burned by the explosion, but... Ha 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 ha. Nice try, but it's all useless. Daisuke laughed. Before their eyes, he shed his darkened, burned skin to reveal that he still hadn't been effectively harmed. A wicked smile crossed his face as he jumped from the ashes and charged the Yuzukis. Kohaku and her troops definitely had their hands full. She was most of all. With her wound slowing her down, her uncle exploited this to his advantage. Taking minor damage, he managed to slip in close enough to disarm her and knock her to the ground. Proud of himself, he gloated, "After I finish you, I'll do the same with my brother." He swung down on her. Starburst. Haraku was startled by this sudden outburst. His fear overtook him as his soldiers were dispatched before his eyes by an unusual blur. Once it stopped, after disabling the soldier S, he could get a good look at it. Naruto was now standing over the fallen soldier S. As his gaze shifted towards Haraku, he began to panic. To avoid the same fate, he figured that he would make a hostage out of Kohaku. He reached for her but unknowingly impaled himself with Kohaku's spear. The exclamation was added as she roughly thrusted it further through his body. I'm afraid, uncle, that it is you that must s. Haraku shivered slightly before falling limp to the ground. Kohaku looked upset at what she had done. Not wanting to leave her this way, Naruto tried to comfort her. Daisuke landed a blow on the middle-aged Yuzuki. When she didn't disappear, his thoughts began to churn. He shifted his attention to the older Yuzuki. So far, she had managed to keep her distance from him as she continued to be a thorn in his side. She would cause the greatest deal of damage in one go at any opportune time, even as he charged at her. He was forced to recover countless times on the path to the elder, but he was instead met with the youthful version. He didn't have time to be surprised as he was hacked by her bladed weapon. That was foolish, the elder criticized the younger version. It's understandable that you want to show off a little, but, against an opponent as tough as this one, you should simply go for the L his heart or lop off his head. TCH. That's no fun, the young one pouted. This isn't about fun. The elder scolded. This isn't playtime. Daisuke fell back to recuperate. His attempt to get the elder failed, but he did manage to get a good hit on the young one. This also kept him from being torn in half from her attack. With the results gathered from his risky trial, his suspicions were confirmed. They aren't shadow clones. Whoever mentioned shadow clones? The young Yuzuki snidely remarked. Daisuke was a bit intrigued, but was also frustrated from how things were going. Then, what kind of jutsu is it? You won't have the time to know, the elder responded. Daisuke's eyes widened as he finally realized that the other Yuzuki had suddenly appeared behind him. Before he could react, she swung down on him with thoughts of splitting him down the middle. Just barely, he avoided being split in two. The boulder he was perched on, however. Damn it, this is starting to get irritating. Daisuke huffed as he tried to regain his composure and control over this fight. With 3 against 1, even if he could heal himself, it wouldn't be easy. Eventually, he himself would run out of steam. If it were just the 2 younger ones, I could probably win with minimal effort, but, with that old hag covering them in the distance, it's tough to find a simple way to defeat them all. I may even have to use that. Daisuke decided to take his chances and see how this fight continued to progress. If things continued to go downhill for him, then he would undoubtedly have to use that. Without warning, Yuzuki made her move. The young one moved the quickest. With her impressive speed, she reached him first. She swung trying to take Daisuke's legs from him. He jumped into the air, and the middle version made her move. She tried to knock his head from his shoulders, but he managed to maneuver in the air to avoid her attack. He then heard sudden explosions. He looked around to find where they had come from and found a large tree falling over towards him. It crashed into him. With the ground fast approaching, he jumped off, crashing and rolling across the ground. Before it could crush him, he sprang to the side. There, he found a trap awaiting him. There was another explosion and sharp ninja weaponry was blasted about the area. Several shuriken and kunai embedded into his body, but, because of slight reflex, he managed to avoid taking serious damage. He had to retreat so that he could get the chance to recover. That damn elder. Before he got the chance to regroup, once again, he was pounced upon by the middle Yuzuki. She narrowly missed as she managed to place a deep slash into his leg. Her attack was immediately followed by the faster and younger Yuzuki. She tried for his T but had to settle with a shallow slash across Daisuke's torso. He quickly fled to find a safe place to recuperate. As he ran away, he overheard the elder order for his demise. The pain was too much. He stopped and hid behind a boulder. He felt that he was fading fast, so he tried to do what he could before it was too late. Damn. As he healed his wounds, he now found himself face to face with the big mountain of a man, Hiroto. Neji and Shino were close by. You're the one who's responsible for all of this. You shattered our bonds, and, now, many of our comrades have SD for this bulls. Hiroto was about to S him into the ground, but he was splashed by a weak trickle of water. I won't let you harm my Daisuke, Azumi said as she fell next to him, clearly exhausted and in severe pain. Hiroto was shocked at her appearance. She was burnt a great deal over her entire body. By his estimation, she wouldn't have long. She turned back to Daisuke to say, I'll protect you until Daisuke, but, if you happen to finish healing yourself, then, it would be nice if you could do the same for me. Daisuke didn't reply. He just continued to focus on himself. His attention was abruptly grabbed by a few errant fireballs. Seeing the fire, Azumi went into shock. She began to shake until she fell to the ground, never to get up again. With a fireball lighting her way, Shinitsu stepped forward to further surround Daisuke. Bastard. This is all your fault. She blamed. Because of you and your manipulating ways, I was forced to kill the one person I thought of as my best friend in the world. The fire in her eyes was burning as brightly and hot as ever as she looked at him. A smirk came to his face. He had kept himself from bleeding to death and had taken care of his most serious wounds. Now, all he had to do was get rid of this troublesome bunch. How would you like to join her? He mocked. Seeing him begin cycling through hand seals, they tried to stop him. Two of the Yuzukis, the younger versions, appeared, ready to claim his head. Daisuke shockingly thrusted out his arms and grabbed both by their TS. With a sadistic smile, his skin darkened and chakra engulfed the three. As Shinitsu and Hiroto surprisingly stopped in their tracks, and her flame SD, so did Neji. Shino let his bugs continue on to try and lend aid. To his and Neji's surprise, Shino's swarm of bugs dropped upon coming into contact with Daisuke's unusual chakra. It's just like that time, Shino remarked. Both he and Neji backed away to safety. Neji activated his Byakugan and observed to get a better understanding of what was happening. He informed those around, Shino and the new arrivals including the elder Yuzuki, that familiar chakra signatures could be found in Shinitsu and Hiroto. The chakra surrounding him was being forced into the boss of the Yuzukis he held. It's spreading out into the area. We have to get back to a safer distance. He relayed. From there, they could only watch as Hiroto and Shinitsu grabbed their trip and began coughing up blood. As it worsened, they were reminded of the scene with the captured enemy soldier S. The elder Yuzuki crumbled to her knees as the chakra ceased and the younger versions of her fell to the ground limply. What does this mean? Sakura asked. The elder explained, it means that the jutsu I used is no longer accessible. At key points in my life, I stored my chakra when it was at its peak. Using it, I was able to gain access to my former forms and the power and ability I once possessed. It's almost like my master, Lady Tsunade's, jutsu, except a bit more complicated, Sakura concluded. Some didn't really understand what she meant, but she wouldn't say any more. It wasn't important at the moment. Now, the boisterous laughter coming from Daisuke troubled them. He continued as he approached them. They kept a careful eye on him to ensure that they weren't suddenly caught in that jutsu as well. If he made the wrong movement, they would be sure to get as far away as possible. How did you like that, Yuzu? He gloated. What was that, you monster? She weakly returned. It was my trump card. My true power. I expose my enemies to my chakra-infused cells, and, once my jutsu is activated, they're basically poisoned from the inside. I also expose certain comrades to this jutsu, as a precautionary measure. Then, when you activated the jutsu just now, why wasn't I affected? The proud expression on Daisuke's face melted away. He wouldn't answer. Instead, he replied, then, why don't I make up for that fact? He was about to run through his seals when he received interference from several sharp weapons soaring his way. He stopped and jumped back. He glowered as Naruto and Kohaku made their sudden and untimely appearance. As Kohaku climbed off of Naruto's back, she said, "You're nothing but a sick beast that deserves to be put down." Daisuke sneered as he said, the only member of that family that wasn't exposed to my jutsu. What did you say? Oh yay? While you were away, I filled the palace full with my cells so that, when the time came, I could execute them all easily. I exposed your parents and most of the guardians to them while Yuzu led her search party around the woods. I exposed Hiroto to my jutsu as I healed him after his encounter with the Leaf Shinobi. And I exposed your little sister to it every time I checked on her. What he didn't let her or anyone else know was that there was a certain requirement for his jutsu to take effect. The victim needed to be in close proximity to him to ensure the best results, about 5 to 10 meters. Kohaku had taken his bait. She was enraged at the horrible picture and possible tragedy Daisuke had painted and was now blindly charging him. He welcomed it as he planned on catching her in his jutsu as well. No. Don't get too close, Neji warned. As she came within range, he flew through seals. He proudly smirked as he finished uninterrupted this time. Although he executed as he planned, a monkey wrench was thrown into his scheme when Naruto, who suddenly appeared before him, landed a bicycle kick into his face. He fell back, but Naruto wasn't done. As he landed, he shot at the still-standing Daisuke and connected with a jaw-breaking punch that sent him soaring and then skipping across the ground. The group stood in awe. No one said a thing until. Is everyone alright? Yamato asked as he, Kuki, and Yo arrived. Naruto, Hinata softly said. Are you okay, Naruto? Yeah, I feel fine, he responded and flexed an arm. Was he exposed? Kiba asked those who had been watching. Neji was about to check but had no time as Daisuke exploded back on the scene and charged. We'll take care of this, Kuki and Yo stated. As they jumped out front to head Daisuke off, those that knew tried to warn them. They weren't quick enough as Daisuke finished his seals. The two quickly began to break down and crumbled to their knees as he approached. His chakra intensified. This chakra, Naruto said as Daisuke continued to come. Daisuke came to Kuki and Yo and grabbed them by their collars. He kept coming while dragging the two, ensuring that they were further exposed to his jutsu. As he came closer, Naruto and Kohaku, and now Yamato, began to drop to their knees as well. Naruto. Sakura worried. Hinata grabbed her bow, pulled an arrow, and released it. It sped through the air and... That bastard. He used him as a shield. Kiba exploded. Daisuke had jerked Yo into the air and used him to S in his place. Hinata thought of trying again but was worried that it would just happen again. What do we do? Do we just stand here and watch the mess? Kiba exclaimed. Yuzuki spoke up. I'm afraid that, with an opponent like this, the best method of defeating him is to fight from a distance that he hopefully can't reach. It's the only way, but, if he can continue to protect himself, then even that may be rendered useless. She was surprised by the sudden appearance of potential help that she was not expecting. It was stupid, and she wanted to put a stop to it, but she dare not notify Daisuke of the new threat fast approaching. Kazuki cycled through seals as quickly as he could. Before reaching him, he finished and grabbed a hold of the unaware Daisuke's arm. He yanked him into a GS lock and the two squared off. Daisuke smirked as he said, you fool, didn't you know? My jutsu is most effective when you're this close. Kazuki didn't back down. But don't you know, you've seen my jutsu plenty of times, so I'm sure you know exactly how it works. It can't possibly work now. My technique takes any jutsu, as long as it isn't taijutsu, and reflects it back at the original caster, giving them a taste of their own medicine. So, right now, you're being dealt the same damage by your very own jutsu. Both began to shake and Kazuki went on to say, you can feel it, can't you? You feel weak, and the pain, seems to increase with every passing second. Blood dribbled from his lips. I told you, I would see to it that USD for what you did to Yuzu. Damn it, this brat actually turned my own technique against me. If I don't stop it, I may K myself. Coming to this conclusion, Daisuke's chakra decreased as he deactivated his technique, for the moment. Kazuki weakly collapsed to his knees, but he wouldn't release his GS. To get away from the effects of his jutsu, Daisuke kicked him away from him. He was about to reactivate his jutsu and finish things when he felt a force planted into his back. Gentle fist. Pulsing wave. Neji had shoved his palm into Daisuke's back, as did Naruto with a single fist and an explosion of his chakra that overtook him. He landed and rolled a short ways after flying over Kazuki. He shook it off, and, to his surprise, got back up as if he was unharmed. Daisuke smirked as Naruto's attempt failed. He swiftly cycled through seals and when he finished. What's going on? He questioned. Naruto informed, both Neji and my jutsus are similar. They force chakra into your system and cause it to shut down. Because of that, you can no longer use your chakra to do jutsu. His wasn't the only one affected by that last exchange, Neji enlightened. Why don't you learn to better control the jutsu if you're going to attack with a comrade? What? I'll have you know, I have great control of my jutsu. I can now choose if I want to only make the shutdown temporary or if I want it to be permanent. Hearing this, and presented with an opportunity, Daisuke quickly pulled out a couple of kunai. He reared back and was about to launch them at Naruto and Neji, but a sharp, steel ring slipped around his head and as a familiar voice said, and now, I put an end to this heartache. Yuzuki swiftly pulled back on her staff, beheading Daisuke in one go. As his blood splattered, relief began to set in as this tragic tale finally came to an end. Seeing Naruto and Kohaku shiver, Sakura and Hinata rushed to their sides. Are you alright? They asked. Naruto was surprised to see the two fuss over him the way they were. They did just about everything from checking their vitals to checking their reflexes. When they found that they were alright, for the most part, their attention shifted to the elder Yuzuki. She sat on the ground with Kazuki's head in her lap. As he coughed up blood, she gently stroked his hair, trying to comfort him. With a smile on his face, he said, "Hey, I don't regret a thing. I wish it didn't have to end this way, but I'm glad that you're here in the end. If I had the choice to do this again and again, whether in this life or another, I would every time." Yuzuki cracked a weak smile and said, "I wouldn't. If I had the option of doing everything the same, I would change it so that it wouldn't end this way, but being here this way, with you, is actually kind of nice." This brought a smile to Kazuki's face. The last smile he could muster. Yuzuki could see as the light in his reflective eyes faded. She closed his eyes, wiped away his tears, and wiped the blood from his mouth. One last time, she stroked his hair and smiled at him. Kohaku joined and, both feeling exhausted from this ordeal, leaned against each other. Back at the palace, with their mission complete, the Leaf Shinobi prepared to return to their own country and village. They all could use a good deal of rest. I told you, I'm fine. Naruto, you were exposed to that weird jutsu, so, who knows how or when it might affect you, Sakura reasoned. I told ya already. But, Hinata tried. I'm fine, Naruto irritatedly groaned. You should know that by now, you did spend the night watching over me. A blush came to Hinata's face as she awkwardly looked away. I was too concerned to sleep. Sakura wanted to admit to the same, but she felt it was a little weird, even if she was worried about the lunkhead. She felt even worse when Naruto revealed. Thanks for your concern, but I think I had a dream because of it. There was this shiny and shimmering angel and this scary demon with a bunch of fire around it. Is he saying that he had a dream about us? Sakura pondered. Naruto continued, the strangest thing about it, however, was that I couldn't see their faces. All I know for sure is that that demon scared the bejesus out of me. Sakura wanted to explode and his tea out. Obviously the angel was Hinata. You'd think he'd figured it out after seeing her jutsu a few times, But what bothers me, is that if she's the angel, then that must mean that I'm that scary demon. I should break his end for thinking of me that way. Naruto, you're such an idiot, man, Kiba commented. Naruto was about to fly off the handle, but Kiba continued, if you would just let them see about you for a little while, everything would be okay. They're both clearly worried about you, but you could make all that go away if you just let Hinata do her thing. Fine, he groaned. They all gathered to say the goodbyes for now. The royal family bid farewell to the Leaf Shinobi, thanked them for their help, and told them to come again. The feudal lord even offered him the opportunity to become his own personal and loyal ninja guardsman, as they would be generously rewarded and well taken care of, as long as he was feudal lord. They politely declined but agreed to keep his offer in mind. Since that was the case, there was still plenty of slots open. I'll be sure to give each and every one the right amount of attention and motherly love that they may need. I don't want the same incident to occur again. I'm too old for something like that, the elder Yuzuki smiled. The Leaf Shinobi smiled and went on their way. As they casually made their way back to the village, Naruto couldn't help but feel a little annoyed. At the moment, he was being constantly monitored by Hinata's jutsu. Like a couple of years before, Naruto had her chakra ring on him as they traveled. Since his training with Master Jiraiya, he felt that he no longer needed to be watched over like a new hatchling, but that wasn't all. Anytime he would quicken his pace, Hinata would be right in stride as well. Normally, she was pretty timid, but, right now, she was being as persistent as he had ever seen. Frustrated as he was, Naruto suddenly stopped and caused the others to as well. What's wrong, Naruto? Sakura asked. Naruto flashed a smile. Let's race. Huh, everyone questioned. Race? Why something like that? Kiba asked as he watched Naruto shift the position of his backpack. Naruto looked over to Hinata, leaned forward, and said, get on. Shocked, she said, huh. With dull eyes, Neji stated, you've been hanging around Lee and Guy Sensei too much. High above a sandy courtyard, standing and sitting on peaks in the nearby building, and above several unconscious men, stood Sasuke with Sugetsu, a woman with glasses and long red hair, Karen, and a large young man with orange hair, Jugo. So why have you gathered us, Sasuke? Karen asked. I have a goal, it would be easier to achieve it with a small team. I've chosen you because of your abilities. From here on, we will call ourselves, Hebi, our aim, is Itachi Uchiha. X. That will be all for this video, be sure to like, subscribe, share, and comment down below for more videos, goodbye.